Welcome to another episode of On Point, where sharing is unlimited. Today, our guest, Morgan Beltre, wife, daughter, sister, friend, future mother. Our discussion today, we're going to be talking about infertility. So let's just jump right on in.
Let's jump
I
in.
think this is an important conversation, especially in our community. We don't talk about this at all.
It's never a discussion, and my goal is always to normalize the inability and the infertility that we face as women.
Right.
In my journey, I've discovered that a lot of women within my family, they've suffered miscarriages, they suffered infertility, but they suffered alone and in silence.
Yeah. And which shouldn't be. There's just too many things that are hush hush. And I think people will be in a better mental health space if we talked about things. I mean, it is what it is, especially when it's out of your control. But I do want to talk about, what does infertility mean? Can I ever have children? So infertility and being sterile are different. Infertility, or more accurately, subfertility, is diagnosed if a couple is unable to conceive a child after having well-timed, unprotected intercourse over the course of 12-month time period. It does not mean you may never get pregnant. Being sterile is diagnosed after a thorough medical examination indicates the patient has no uterus, no ovaries, no egg production, or no sperm production. So I just wanted to just at least be able to explain what the difference is between both, because a lot of times I know I used to say sterile and infertility, it was interchangeable.
Correct.
And as we can see here, exactly. So well, just tell us, how common is infertility?
Through my journey, I've discovered that it's very common. Like, it is exactly 1 in 8 couples are facing infertility. That could be anybody. That could be your sister. That could be your mother. That could be your brother. It's not just the women that face infertility. Men face infertility too. And you never know what a couple is going through or how long they've been trying to conceive.
Right.
And this actually brought me to a realization that, one of the things I would do all the time, I'll go to a wedding. First thing I would say is, "Oh, when you having a baby? When's the baby coming?" I didn't realize how hurtful that could be to someone that's been trying.
Exactly.
And that's infertile.
Right, and that was me for a while. It took me a little over 6 years to get pregnant.
Wow.
And people were like, "Oh, are you going to have a child?" And I didn't know what was going on. Mine is more of a spiritual thing. Like, I just touch up on it. I gave it to the Lord and
Amen.
instantaneously. But that was after a long time period. I didn't think I could have children, and I wanted a lot. I have one, but she was a lot. Speaking of that, where is she? So
A lot of goodness.
yeah. So I also wanted to ask, what kind of fertility testing should our fertility doctors perform?
I think for me, it was the push. Once I decided to take out my IUD, because I wasn't trying to have no babies in college. once we decided as a couple to take out the IUD and actually actively try, we actively tried for almost a year before we decided to actually seek help. And one of the first things that they had tested was the FSH, the follicle stimulating hormone, which tests the level of stimulation within your follicles in your ovaries and in your fallopian tubes.
Wow, this is just so much information. Like, I never had this discussion ever.
Never knew. Who knew?
Yeah, right,
that was a thing.
Right. And you just talked about the evaluation, but I'm just going to read off some symptoms here.
Yeah.
So symptoms for women can include abnormal, irregular, or painful periods, no periods, skin changes including more acne, changes in sex drive and desire, dark hair growth on the lips, chest, and chin, loss of hair or thinning hair, unexplained weight gain, hot flashes, painful intercourse or inability to have intercourse, milky breast discharge. But there are symptoms for men.
There are symptoms.
Pain, lump or swelling in the testicles, problems with erections and ejaculations, small, firm testicles, changes in hair growth, and changes in sexual desire. But I did hear that there might be something else linked to men.
Yeah, what we found in our journey is that a lot of times use of recreational drug use can cause your sperm to be decreased, which the numbers can be decreased, and also become slow swimmers.
Yeah, that's yeah. Well, when you say recreational, I'm sure that's also we're talking about Mary Jane.
Mm-hmm. That puff
With
puff pass.
right, yeah, yeah. All right. So now that we've gotten the formalities out of the way, let's talk about your journey. And I think one of the things I want to start off with is stigma.
Stigma.
Especially in the black community.
Right.
And I think a lot of this is just historical too. We just didn't talk about a lot of things because we had more things to worry about, like being free.
Yeah.
And of course not. We just couldn't afford to go to a doctor, and have these tests done to know.
And this is all true, and it's not even an option for us, right? Especially as Black women, we're expected to be able to conceive, to be able to bear children, to be able to contribute to population. And for me, when I got sick in 2015 with a very rare autoimmune disorder called scleroderma, and unfortunately it damaged my lungs, my internal organs. But what we don't realize is that when you have these autoimmune disorders, the first thing that the oxygen supply cuts off is the reproductive organs. Mm-hmm. So my reproductive organs were badly damaged due to my autoimmune disorder, and then on top of that, I had to receive chemotherapy, which affected my eggs. Mm-hmm. What a lot of people don't realize is that we're born with the eggs that we're going to carry. So those eggs are with you through the whole time. So when you say you waited a long time to have babies, you didn't fertilized a 30-something-year-old egg.
And I didn't even realize that. So I'm shaking my head, yeah. But I'm also in my mind like, dang, I didn't even know that. Like, I'm in class right now and I'm okay with it. I just think that, living is learning.
It's learning. And one of the things that we talk about, like the stigma is, my parents always told me, don't have sex, you'll get pregnant. Well, Mom, it's not that easy. Right. Okay? It is not that easy. When we decided to get pregnant, we could not get pregnant, right? It wasn't just about having sex and getting pregnant, right? There's so many other things that go into actually being able to conceive a child. It's the timing.
Right.
It's also your mental state. It's also your partner, right? It's so many other things that go into being able to conceive a child, and it's not just on the woman. It's not just on the man. It's coming together and doing both. So.
Right. So after the stigma, I'm sure that led to depression.
Oh yeah, I mean, once I was told that, it was kind of like when I was told I had to do chemo. It was just all over for me. It was like these kids that I never knew that I wanted, I couldn't have, and it was heartbreaking for me. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have a friend or a sister or a parent that said, "Okay, I went through this," or "I have been going through this." I had never talked to anyone that had gone through it. So I suffered alone, and I didn't share my story with anyone. And I was ashamed. I felt guilty. I felt like it was something that I did. I remember being in the hospital, and I leaned over to tell my husband that, like, we're not going to be able to have children. And I told him, you should really go be with someone that can make you a father, and I can't do that for you. And I just... I remember he looked at me and he said, "This is all I ever wanted. You're all I ever wanted." Aww. And I said, "All right, cuz we got to get married."
This is a whole movie, but go ahead.
Yeah, so, I mean, that response was very good to me, but in my heart, I felt like I was keeping him and holding on to him and preventing him from an opportunity, know? Right. And it hurt my soul. It really did. And it took me a long time to be able to heal from that. And I was very depressed. I was very upset. And I want to correct something, because my friends around me were having children. I was never not happy for them. I was always happy for them. I was always excited for them. But I was like, when is it my turn? Right. What is going to happen with me? How am I going to be able to have a legacy and leave a legacy behind? How am I going to be able to have a family? And a lot of us as women, especially as Black women, we define us by the things that we can do and the things we can't do. So I had to spend years forgiving myself for beating myself up for the things that I couldn't do.
Right. Well, I'm glad you came to the point of forgiveness. Amen. And because there are some people who go to their deathbed without forgiving themselves for something that they actually cannot do. And this is just not out
of your control.
Right. And this is just not talking about being we're not just talking about infertility. We can talk about all aspects.
Anything in
why
life.
wasn't my father there? Why was I treated like this? Why did this happen to me? And it's like, it's not your fault, especially, this whole autoimmune disease was like out of your control. So, I'm glad you wanted to share this story with, no, I'm glad you shared this story with me and we're willing to share it with other people because I think people need to begin to talk about what's going on and someone that they can also confide in, because you just have to be ready to share it with the world. But in the beginning stages, having a support group or a support group where you can be able to get through.
And I think that was a big part of my journey, was when I actually said it out loud. People were asking me all the time, when are you going to have babies? When are you going to have babies? And I was just like, we're working at it. But then it hurt every single time someone would ask me, because I would relive the fact that I couldn't, and I couldn't say, I can't, and I remember when I decided to say it, and I decided to declare that, hey, I have this autoimmune disorder. I'm probably not going to have children. And I posted it right on Facebook. And I was surprised by the amount of support that I received from all of my friends and family. And it's just that relief that I had after I said it out loud, after I declared it, after I said, okay, this is what it is. I'm a firm believer that this is God's journey for me, and that's why I wanted to share the stories, because my journey might be somebody else's journey, and you don't have to travel that journey alone, and you don't have to think that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. It may look different. Your idea of family and your journey with a family might look different from somebody else's.
Right. Well, I'm glad you said all that, because then there's another component to this, when you talk about chemotherapy and what it has done to your eggs, because a lot of people might turn, their nose up at in vitro fertilization. But in your case, it's like the only route at this point.
It's the only route for me. And at one point, I was weak. My body was too weak to do to carry a child, so I would have had to do surrogacy. But I worked very hard to be in a position where I can carry a child. And then later on down the line is when we found out that my two little eggs that I had left that survived chemo, they were bad. So we weren't able to use those eggs. They were called premature eggs. That means that they, before fully developing, they were cut off from the supply of oxygen, and they weren't able to be used. So they're invalid. So therefore, we had to explore the opportunity and the option of a donor egg. So a donor egg is when another woman, they undergo egg harvesting. You can go to the donor egg bank and you can purchase eggs to fertilize. And because my husband does have sperm that works, we will use his sperm to fertilize the egg, and then it will be implanted in me. If it was surrogacy, we would need to fertilize the egg and then implant it in somebody else.
Right. So do you get to choose who the egg is coming from? They give you a profile and
you do. So my journey was very scary for me at first. For some reason, I had a lot of anxiety and fear about carrying an egg that did not belong to me, about my connection with the baby, about even if I was going to be able to find a black donor egg. Because black people don't donate nothing.
It was like, what? I got to lay on the table and do what?
Yes. And I was really nervous about that. I had anxiety. I had nightmares that I was going to have this white baby. If you guys don't know, my husband is very white facing. Even though he's Dominican, he's very white facing. Like I was very scared about that. I was terrified about having a white baby. And eventually that went away, because my desire and my love for my unborn child was way bigger than that fear. And I was just like, I don't care. I'm having a baby. Having somebody baby. Somebody gonna give me these eggs. I'm gonna have this baby, and it's gonna be beautiful. And once I overcame that fear, we went through a lot of procedures. One of these procedures was they had to check my uterus. Now, I have been through a lot of testing with my autoimmune disorder, but this was the worst thing ever. They literally blow up your cervix. So you're walking around like you're 6 months pregnant, because they need to make sure
you can carry it.
They need to make sure that your uterus is healthy enough to carry a baby.
Right.
Otherwise, you're spending $20,000 for eggs, all this money for the process, fertilization, storing these eggs, transporting these eggs, and then
carrying it.
Yes. So you might miscarry. So one of the tests that they do, they blow up the uterus to make sure that it's healthy, and that was the worst thing I ever had done in my life, and it was very painful. But it was something that I had to do, and just had to get through it.
So how long did that process take? I mean, once they blew up your...
So they blew it up, and it stays probably big for like a week.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it goes back down, and then they come back and say, oh, it's healthy. I'm like, yeah, of course it is. But each process, we've been on an infertility journey for over almost 2 years now, from the time that we actually found out we were infertile to actually being able to purchase eggs. And we've gotten very close to the end of the process to find out, oh, you got to wait longer, right? So during that wait, now all of our testing has expired, so we have to redo everything.
Oh, Lord.
So I have to redo that little blow up thing, but guess what?
It's worth it, right?
Gotta do it. Gotta do it.
Right. That is so awesome, though. I mean, what are the disparities amongst ethnicities in this genre, if you want to call it a genre, but you're not being able to?
So, one of the things that I did, that I learned within my journey is that there is a huge disparity amongst Black women of color, actually dying in childbirth than non-women of color. And this comes from a lot of misinformation from your doctor, and also that stigma that Black women can tolerate more pain than anyone else. Like, I remember a point in the change of our journey for us was we went to go watch and my husband was great. He came with me. Brown University did a viewing of a movie called Birthing Justice. And in this movie, they just talk about how Black women are sharing their stories about how they gave birth and they went home and they were still bleeding, and the doctor told them it was normal, and they almost bled to death. Or they have friends that have bled to death, or they have friends that have died. Because of the misinformation that's received and the not having anywhere to go. Fortunately, we do have birthing experts, and we do have doulas. And I remember telling my husband, I need a doula, and I need a Black doula.
I have a perfect one for you.
Is her name Q?
I was going to say, Q, where are you? Yes.
I actually met Q at the viewing of this birthing center, of the Birthing Justice. And I was sitting there watching it, and this vibrant woman stood up and had a lot to say, and I was like, babe, I want her.
Right, and Q is dynamite.
I want someone that's going to tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't want someone that's going to sugarcoat things and tell me everything's going to be fine. But I want someone that's going to say, hey, this is what's real, and this is what's going to happen. This is what might happen. This is what might not happen.
Right, because you have to prepare yourself for this whole process.
Yes.
So Q, yes, Q.
Find me. And doulas are now, thanks to some of the work that Q did within the state of Rhode Island, doulas are now covered within your insurance up to a certain amount. So that's an amazing contribution for women and women of color.
Right. This is awesome. You know how resilient you are, and just being able to share your story. And I just pray someone listening, they won't feel like there's no hope. Amen. And that if you can do it, so can they. It's
a dark place. Like, I was in a dark place for a long time, and a lot of people don't realize when you feel like you cannot bear children, you feel useless. I felt useless. I felt no purpose for a long time.
Right. And then even when you spoke about your husband, because they'll have no legacy. When you think of kids, that's you. They're carrying, that lineage. Right. So, this is great, though. Thank you for wanting to share with us.
Of course.
So let's talk about in vitro fertilization. So can you, give us more in depth, the process, time frame, expectations?
So, in vitro is the process in which an egg and a sperm is fermented in a lab or in a petri dish, they might say, and then implanted into a uterus. So that's the process of in vitro, and it is some people like in I read in Gabrielle Union's book that she suffered multiple miscarriages back to back to back, and it's that process of not knowing, right? So once the egg is fertilized, you have no idea what's going to happen, right? It's just like any other pregnancy. A lot of pregnancies miscarry within that first trimester, which another thing women don't talk about is miscarriages, the loss of life, the loss of your child, which does affect you.
Yes.
And it does affect your chances of getting pregnant again and your chances of conceiving and your idea of conceiving, right? You have that fear.
And a level of stress, too.
That level of stress. So in vitro is usually used when the sperm can't ferment the egg within the body. So they have to take it outside. So there might be a reason as to why if you're using your own eggs and someone else's sperm, maybe you have a blockage within your fallopian tubes, within the cervix or within the uterus where the sperm can't get through. Or it might be sperm, guys, them little swimmers aren't swimming. So they might need a little assistance where you can mix it all up in a bowl and implant it. When they say that turkey baster thing, that is real. They do take it in an instrument and they insert it and they push it through the cervix and into the uterus and they implant it there. There are multiple people that do have miscarriages within that first trimester with that process. Even so, there are multiple people where it doesn't take, where the egg will come out.
Reject. Oh.
Right. Reject. It comes right out and it never even results in a pregnancy. Okay. So you have to be prepared to take those L's but keep looking for the win, right? And for me, when we started and we got to the end last year, my stepmom passed away. So I wasn't in the position to take another L. And I just remember talking to the doctor and saying, we need to hold on because I am grieving right now and I don't have it in me to grieve through anything negative or anything else. And I really felt like my baby would feel my grief, right? And I just didn't have the desire to get pregnant at that time. So that's why we put it on hold. And I'm grateful for my care team that was like, oh, we completely understand. We're going to stick with you. We're going to give you all of your options. I'm more of a give it to me straight type of person. You don't have to lie to me. You don't have to sugarcoat it. Just tell me what it is and I'll make my best informed decision. And my team was amazing. And they gave me a lot of options, and they were able to hold off on a lot of things for me. And so when we were ready, this year we were ready, we jumped back in, and now we're just redoing our testing and getting back to the end of the process.
Awesome. Listen, I can't wait for you to, send me a text and say, guess what?
I thought you meant you can't wait to babysit.
No, I didn't say that yet.
You said you can't wait to change some diapers.
No. No, bring them over when they can speak and walk.
Some babies speak at 9 months.
Well, that's fine. As long as they can speak, they can use the potty.
You didn't say that. You said speak and walk.
Right, and then I said talk, and I'm like, wait, speaking and talking is the same thing. I guess I was like making sure I can hear what they want to say. I can't figure it. I'm old too. Like, look at all this hair. I have no time. Like, what? No. But your journey is it's a remarkable journey.
Amen.
And I'm here for you. I'm praying for you.
Thank
I'm
you.
Rooting for you. Like God
Thank
can
you.
do that. So I
Amen.
can't, I just set up here. It was like wife, daughter, sister, friend, and future mother.
Future mother. It's going to happen.
Yes, of course
it's going to happen. And I had to come to grips with that too. I had to accept the fact that, I will be a mother. It's not going to come the way that it looks traditional for everybody else, but this is my journey. This is a journey God has for me. And I just strongly believe he wouldn't put it so heavy on my heart if he wasn't going to see it through. Right. And that's what's gotten me through some of the toughest times is knowing that, okay, this is my journey, but it's my journey and it's going to be light at the end of the tunnel, whatever it looks like. If this doesn't work, the in vitro and the donor eggs don't work, then we will adopt a child. And, we just have so much love to give in our family, in our household, that we just want to love on some of these kids.
And I was going to say that, like, your child is going to be so blessed just because, you're just such a loving, kind, soft
Thank
person.
you.
And I know you will pour that into your child.
Every
and
day.
especially through the process, makes you appreciate
Right.
being able to bear children
Right.
even more. So you're going to take that extra care, of the blessing.
Amen.
So with that being
And I want a push gift when I get pregnant.
you want a what?
A push gift.
What's that?
So the push gift is
Like, what is that?
when you push the baby out in delivery, you get a gift. And I'm talking about like a car gift.
Okay, so there's gonna be a whole bunch of. I mean, who's giving?
The husband.
Okay.
The sperm donor is giving
he has that.
a push gift.
Yes. Okay.
I want
Does
mine
he
in the
know?
form of a trip.
Does he know? Is he listening? He'll be watching.
He knows. He knows his wife.
Yes,
She
yes.
wants something.
You're like, this work.
Wants something.
Anyway, but thank you so much, my love, for stopping through the podcast to talk about your journey with infertility and what is going to happen on the opposite side. Thank you so much. I pray that anyone's listening, that you feel more confident and seeing this process through and knowing that there's healing, knowing that you can forgive yourself and you're not by yourself. Thank you for another joining us for another episode of On Point, where sharing is unlimited, and also giving a huge shout out to our videographer Archie Johnson, who is certainly amazing. And for all those people in Rhode Island and Providence who know me, I love you, and peace out.